increase to the ESOL position in our district approved for next year. I had previously planned to write requesting an increase in services for our multilingual learners, and learning to already approved this change. I teach sixth grade English language arts at the Connors Emerson School. And in the past 2 years, I've had several multilingual learners who have not received ESOL services. While my colleagues and I have coordinated and utilized available resources to provide the best possible educational experience for these students. What we really should have, ethically and according to the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division and the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights, is a certified teacher providing direct services. My hope is that with this increase to the ESOL position, we will be able to work collaboratively with families to create learning plans for multilingual learners and provide services that support their learning of English in order for them to more meaningfully participate in our educational programming. The number of students across our district that qualify for services will continue to be dynamic, and even one full-time position may not accommodate the needs we have. According to the recommendations from the Maine Department of Education, the current needs in my single classroom alone would account for over 2 hours a day. My hope and request is that if the increase to this position does not allow for all multilingual students in our district to receive services, that another increase to staffing is made. I would also advocate for ESOL programming to be reviewed throughout the school year to assure these students are being supported in our schools. And I'd like to thank you for your attention to this issue of equity in our schools. Thank you. Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. Okay, so is there a motion that can be a slate for approval of minutes from the regular meeting on 13 February and the workshop on 29th of March?
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Reports and updates. That brings us to the superintendent's report. So tonight.
Happy April, everybody. So we start with enrollment. So from the last time we met, our enrollments are up by 3. So we have 1,421 students. As Selena and I were looking at the numbers this morning, it seems like, in the elementary school, there is a lot of movement. And this time of year, as you hear in your individual board meetings, there's shuffling and moving around with our enrollments. In terms of school highlights, it's been an exciting, we had the snow issue in March that made it so we couldn't have that meeting. And since then, our spring sports have come up and are up and running. Our 5th graders most recently were out for the outdoor orientation program that all our 5th graders do at Camp Beechcliff. There was the middle school speech contest. We've had parent-teacher conferences. And in some of our schools, they explored student-led conferences, which was something that was near and dear to my heart when I was an assistant principal at Connors Emerson. And then I just wanted to roll through some of the things, because I don't know if every board hears the great things that are happening at all of our schools. So just sort of a quick run through. At Trenton, they've had their Arts Week, and they're getting ready to have signups for drama with Barn Arts folks, and had Read Across America. In Bar Harbor, they had their March into Reading all month long. Girl Day at the State House, and the show choir there got a silver award at competition, and they have the outstanding choreography. At MDES, I've been able to go in and see, focusing on art, they had this funky fashion thing that they do, and then they have the empty bowls, which is this week, which had to be put off, and so that is really exciting. Pematic, they've been fundraising for a sign outside their building. They raised $15,000. That's awesome. The Jazz Night is coming up. I believe that's tomorrow. In the month, they celebrated Women's History Month through the month of March, and have author visits coming. In Tremont, one of the things that I've noticed in going to some of their meetings is middle school, they have an options program, which covers a variety of after-school opportunities for kids, from bike repair, wood shop, sewing, math, and garden work. Here at the high school, I'll talk about it later, but they have their EF trip going to Ireland, Scotland, and England, which I will be on, and Julie is administrator going along. We had a student who's in the National Honor Society come to an AT meeting to talk about fourth grade day here at the high school. Is something we've done prior to COVID and reinstituting that. And he came and spoke to us about that program and how to get that going again. They've had the Step Up Day, the One Act plays, probably saw all those in the paper, and the Social Responsibility Day, which was, I think it was a day of joy. They had some things sort of listed in there for this year that, were heavier subjects. And, this year has been a tough year. And so they just put together a day of celebration. And it kind of culminated in a basketball game with the unified team playing staff. And it was just a wonderful event. And I think everybody left that day in really high spirits. So it met its goal. At Swans, we'll be instituting the fourth grade day out there. And so me and principals have been working really hard with the fourth grade teachers to have that event happen again, which is sort of learning about the history and geography of the island. And they had a really successful basketball season. It's really hard to be at an island school with limited transportation, but at one of the last meetings at Swans sort of talked about some of the success of the games that they've been able to play. And Cranberry and Frenchboro, they're heading out to Cuttyhunk, which is an island off of Massachusetts for an Island Institute event with some of those smaller islands. There's a mix of those smaller one-room schoolhouses and getting those kids together, and they're going to be doing that. And recently, Frenchboro has been coming off the island regularly and actually going to the Harbor House in Southwest Harbor to have some time off the island, and they've been checking out the kids in Pemmican. So sort of just an exciting time that's sort of happening in all of our schools. And I think it's important that this big board to get an understanding of all those great things that are happening, because we kind of all focus on our schools. At HCTC, we had a bunch of students who were winners from MDI for Skills USA. And that is where those individuals sort of show their talents, whether it's in cooking or woodworking, in nursing or biotechnology, in a whole variety of ways. And I think it was Matt, 6 students, I had my list from our schools that are going on to the nationals. And so they're fundraising for that, hence the plug. If you are a runner, and there's going to be the HCTC Boggy Brook 5K fundraiser on May 21st. The first 50 participants, if you sign up, I think it's up to 47 right now. There's 47. Oh no, I signed up last night, so there's 46 shirts. And that's a bunch of people signed up. So if you go to the HCTC website, you'll see the link. And that's one of the fundraisers to help get all the students to the national competition. And our students do really well in those competitions. I'm really proud. My son won once for one of those, so it's really fun. Just so you know, for COVID school health, we've had some spikes in a couple of schools, school officials have been, managing that and making sure folks were aware. In terms of teacher and support staff, the bargaining units, we just sort of had, our conversation with Tom right now to begin that conversation. And like Jessica said, that the teachers are also interested in doing this bargaining. So that's, I think, a real move for us and for them as a whole as we move through this process. Also, I've been working with them on a planning time survey. That's something that's been an issue as we talked about calendars. Jessica and I met with Cindy and Renee and sort of talked about the sort of untapped potential and some of the teachers that we have and sort of thinking about how to do that. So we put together, I met with them on Wednesday and work on a document to come up with a survey that will then go out to teachers to come up with ideas. Then we'll take some of those and have a smaller group and be able to present those to principals as they help and think about planning their schedules for next year. But to try to utilize that expertise that's out within our district. So that's exciting. In terms of a budget update, all of our schools have passed their budgets and now they're in various processes. We're going out to towns. Frenchboro is the last one. But I thought it'd be nice to sort of hear some of the ranges in terms of, where our increases are budget to budget and also in appropriations. And so, our range for our budget to budget increases across the district was from 0.01% increase to 7.18%. So on average, our schools together had about a 4.4% increase overall as an entire system. In terms of what that looked like for appropriations, it went from 1.6 to an 18.35, and on average, it was about a 7% increase across the board if you were to average those. And just, I don't know if you've heard this number before, but when you combine all of our budgets, our total budgets for our district is $46 million. And so, we're a major economic engine in terms of the island and, what we do here. So I thought it was important, considering what we're talking about moving forward around reorganization, to sort of have that sense of us as a unit and sort of what that means. So I just wanted to sort of share those numbers with folks as we move forward. You'll be learning more around, we talked back in February about sort of restructuring the technology, and we're working on hiring in those positions. So we'll have somebody next time around that we'll be able to talk about, I hope. And then, I just wanted to share a little bit about the end of school. I've been talking at the individual level in terms of the need for getting some waivers. So those are in the process of happening. Right now, as we said at the high school meeting, it's looking like with the utilization of the one snow day, we'll be out on the 9th. But again, I have to do these waivers with the state to sort of see where we land, and this is the time of year that we do that. I do have a meeting with the Hancock County superintendents on Thursday, and oftentimes there is a state official there, usually Dan Schuda, who's the deputy commissioner, shows up. So I'll probably be talking a little bit about that when we talk. And then I just wanted to sort of share that, I'll be out on Friday with the EF trip with the high schoolers, and then through the break, and then I'll come back on Monday. So then I'll be back in the building on that Tuesday. And so in that time, Rhonda Fortune will be sort of acting in my stead with the folks in the central office in terms of, answering any questions or needs that come up on those 2 days or within that period of time during vacation. Hopefully, but we also have a office staff to support, and I'll be doing my best to check my email in the morning and in the afternoon to respond. And we're going over any of our safety plans and everything to make sure that she's up to speed. So, spring moves fast, and it's kind of interesting that by the time next week rolls around, it'll be the middle of April, and then before you know it, it'll be May. But springtime always brings a lot of excitement around schools, so I'm excited for what our individual schools are doing in the high school and collectively what we're doing. So that's my report.
Question, Mike? Okay. Moving on then to directors of teaching and learning. That you are.
Yeah, I know. Normally we divvy it up, and
Yeah,
do you want to take one?
sure. The April note this month was on the Maine through year assessment. Written by the NWEA, and it's just slightly different than the MAP test that we've been giving for many years. It's just based on state standards for reading and math versus national standards, and so they need to do some norming, so we won't get our results immediately like we usually do. We're going to, they at first thought we'd have to wait till the fall. Now they're thinking July, so that's much better than September, October. So we'll keep everybody up to let people know when those results come in.
And we had our big Schoology PD day. It was an all tech day. Not an easy thing to, nobody wants to be on the computer all day. We totally get that, and we only had one day, so we tried to build in lots of breaks and, you know, exercise and treats and fun and mix it up. At the end of the day, it still was a lot of computer day. Anyways, like that. But you know, that really had a lot to do with our tech integrators working super hard and diligently for almost a year preparing that. Everything was recorded, so you could choose a self-paced module and watch with support in the room, or you could do everybody in the library with me and walking me through something. So we tried to make it as dynamic as possible, and we feel like it was very successful. We know we have some places to support. We did share sort of the feedback that we got from the day. Along with the note. Did everybody see that one? So, you know, we've got more work to do in moving forward, and we're starting to plan for that for next year. Part of our new hires will have a big part in that support in moving forward. And then the other thing I want to talk about was the retreat. So I thought that would have been on your list. You missed it. Oh. We had our admin retreat in March. We schedule one every year, and we did a lot of things, continuing to work on PEPG. That's our performance evaluation professional growth cycle. Continuing our MTSS work, multi-tiered systems of support, working with our Great Schools Partnership coach. And we also took a look at some data that we collected at the end of the professional development day, which was about the social and emotional well-being of our faculty. So it was a pretty comprehensive survey, and it had quite a range of things from, you know, I feel comfortable talking about, you know, race in my classroom and addressing issues of that, or I feel like I belong in my school, or you know, I feel like I'm learning and growing professionally. Like there was all these different pockets of you know, information we were digging for. We had a very thoughtful, deep conversation about that as an administrative team. To get a sense of where the people who work in this district are on these various topics, and then how we can continue to support with professional development and moving forward. So this is the time of year Rhonda and I are gonna start asking people to, you know, pick their goals for next year, school goals and individual goals. And then we're gonna write grants with the state to support them with projects. And so we wanted to have all the information at our, you know, fingertips before we went ahead and made those plans. So.
Questions for Rhonda and Julie? Okay, moving on to subcommittee updates. I think most people were at the restructure committee, at the workshop on reorganization. So, and that committee will be meeting again later in this week. So there's probably not a lot to update on that. And policy committee, we already do the policy committee, other than about that stuff.
You know, we're continuing to look at the language for ACAAR, which is sort of the procedures around harassment, and making sure those fit with what we're doing and sort of makes sense. Also looking at animals in schools. That's something that came up for the nurses, so that is in there as well. And you know, we'll be sort of looking through our matrix to see which ones are coming up for updating. As you know, the legislature is in process, and as soon as they vote and the governor signs, usually we get a lot of things that we may have to adjust. Usually I get a better sense of that towards the end of June in terms of what they want to put on the docket. And then just sort of talking about reorganization, and you know, just know we just have one more school that needs to vote and sign, and then it'll go off to the commissioner, and we'll begin that process of having conversations with our select boards about building membership for the RPC. So, you know, again, I'm very excited that this process is moving forward, and that we're going to be able to sit at the table with our community partners and sort of talk about how we want to be as a school system. So that's big stuff.
Okay, that brings us on to our discussions item, which is, first reading of policy IJJ selection of education, materials and IJJ citizens challenge of educational media form, and I think these are just relatively minor updates to match with, some recent law and practice.
And that most of it was just looking at language, being a little bit more clear, when the committee discusses material and creates a recommendation. That the criteria that's used for the selection process is used in that written notice that sort of talks about what the decision is. And then in terms of the form, just some minor changes in clarifying, some of the language and relationship that someone may have who's, really challenging some educational material. And we had one of the librarian, Siobhan Ryan from Connors Emerson was a representative who came to that meeting where we sort of discussed this and I appreciate it.
There any questions about that, policy? I mean, about that, yeah, that in that form. So, we'll bring this back next time, to, so if you think of anything, you can email us, Mike or Selena. Okay, that, brings us to our action item, the, school calendar, and you can see there's version 1 and version 2, and just to, update and remind people that we, removed the early release calendar containing the early release proposal. So Mike will explain these two calendars, but there is not an early release proposal contained in this calendar. Proposal.
So as of the note that I sent out to everybody with these versions back in March, version 2 is basically this year's calendar turned into next year's calendar. Version 1 adds just 2 more early release days to meet the needs of the specifically the common studies and the district-based teams. One was going to be in September and one was in March. And that was to provide some of that extra professional development work following up in August with that first day in September to be able to continue that work and to have some more consistent time in between. For the calendar. And then, like I said earlier, in terms of the working with the association and the survey with the teachers, thinking about creative ways to meet the needs that were written in our proposals around the early releases and why we were looking at that time. And so, hopefully that will bear some fruit in how we do that work, but in continuing with our district-based work was really important. And that's something that our leaders of those common studies had asked for. So that's why I did version 1, and that's the one that I'm proposing that get passed for next year.
Any questions?
I'll move to approve version 1. No, I do have.
Okay.
Second. How? I see the March one is just subbing out a different early release, but you added, where did you get that extra day from? It looks like you're starting and ending on this day.
The new one early release is in the second week of September. It was just adding on that side, and then the one in March was added to the first.
Okay, but we're still, I didn't look at the number of student days.
We haven't changed the number of students since this one.
Student days, when we start with stuff on the same day.
Because they're just happy.
Oh, right, okay. Calendar math.
I'm sure he's doing it. Motion.
I know. I knew it would be explained to me. I just was.
Any other discussion? Hey, all in favor? All opposed? Okay, we get that, yeah. Okay. Okay, so, any other business?
So I was realizing earlier that this is Gail's last meeting here with us. We have our elections coming up in town meeting, so I really appreciate Gail's time that she has put into the MDES committee, the high school board, the AOS board. She came in and helped us out. When we needed it, we relied on her experience through this last couple of years or a year and a half that she's been. I just want to thank her for the time that she has put towards our schools. Absolutely.
It's gonna.
I don't think there's anything more important that people do in the communities than serving the school board and work in their public education the best we can. Other than the roads.
Thank you for your time, Gail, your two rounds of service. Any other business? Okay, future agenda items. Well, we'll have more updates on the RBC, and we'll have more collective bargaining updates. We'll have the policies back for executive action item. And Selena will work her magic on the rest of the items. Is there any more public comment? Okay, the next meeting will be Monday, the 8th of May. I'm not sure if it will be 5 or 6. To figure out coordinate with the high school, but yeah. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn? Second. Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Okay.